blokes and Sheilas, and welcome to the most Aussie review I've ever done in my life. For the record, I don't ever say g'day to people. I hate it. I hate that word. I hate it so much, and I hate the word well, no, blokes I don't mind, but I hate the word Sheilas. I hate it. But, and I had intended to post this before Christmas because this is a Christmas movie, but after watching it, I was full of so much pride, and that as soon as I was planning my review, I'm like, I'm going to make this the most Aussie review that I possibly can. I was tempted to paint myself in green and gold, but I can't do green because of my green screen, so that would have messed things up a bit. And I don't own an Aussie flag, so I can't use that, but I can speak Australian, and that is what I shall do for this review. So brace yourselves, because it's about to get super Aussie up in here with my review for A Sunburnt Christmas. A Sunburnt Christmas is a 2020 Australian comedy directed by Christian Van Vuren and written by Elliot Vella, Gretel Vella and Timothy Walker. On an outback farm ravaged by drought, the lives of a struggling family are upended when a runaway criminal dressed as Santa Claus crashes onto their property. Now, you might be asking yourself, so what's the John Dory on this flick? Well, let me tell ya, this is the Australian Christmas film I have waited 29 years for. The only thing that has come close in my lifetime to being an Aussie Christmas film is 2005's To Kath and Kim Code, a telemovie special based on the TV series Kath and Kim. A Sunburnt Christmas has a fair few Australian tropes, but I completely forgive them because in the context of the story, they all work and are 100% accurate. Whether it be Australian colloquialisms, traditional Aussie nicknames, or backyard cricket on Christmas Day, this film has it all. I've recently mentioned in both my podcast series Unity Through Cinema and Switch Movies how I think the kind of Christmas movies that can be universally accepted and enjoyed, meaning also by those who do not celebrate Christmas, are films where Christmas is not the central focus but the backdrop of a different story, and that's the case with this film. The film is a Stan original, Stan being an Australian streaming service, and the film follows Daryl, played by Daniel Henschel, a criminal on the run currently dressed as Santa who crashes onto an outback farm where he knows money to be buried. However, this money belonged to Dingo, a criminal who is a few stubby short of a six-pack, played by my brother's long-term mate Sullivan Stapleton. While Daryl is hiding out, he befriends Daisy, played by Lena Nankival, a young girl who believes Daryl to be the real Santa, and her brother Tom, played by Aidan McGuinness, a boy ruled by fear who also becomes convinced Santa has crash-landed onto their property. He eventually meets their older sister Hazel, played by Tatiana Good, who since the death of their father has had to take on the responsibilities as the young children's parent, as their mother, Fiona, played by Ling Cooper Tang, is not in an able frame of mind to do so. At first glance, this film sounds utterly ridiculous, but I think it sounds fair dinkum Australian. I was prepared to support this film even if it turned out terrible because Australian Christmas films are about as common as a Tasmanian tiger, so even if it sucked, it was gonna be better than a kick up the backside. But to my surprise and joy, I absolutely adored everything about this film. This happens to be first-time roles for all our child actors in this film, and they each knocked it out of the park. Daisy is adorable and endearing. She's a tough little Sheila who holds all those innocent child values while being tough as nails and knows how to handle a shotgun. The death of their father has had a greater impact on Tom, with him becoming terrified of virtually everything, but part of this shows his childlike innocence too. I mean, after all, these kids saw a random guy covered in tats show up in the middle of the night looking like the dog's breakfast, and because he was dressed as Santa, they believed it. I mean, sure, we could say these kids are insanely stupid or naive because of how easily Daryl was able to pull the wool over their eyes, but I prefer to see it as adorable childlike innocence. Mostly, I just love that these kids can see a guy covered in tats and believe he's Santa. How Aussie is that? Hazel is another story. She's tough as nails and won't take crap from anyone, and she's long past believing in Santa, but she loves her brother and sister, and so she's willing to play along because it's better than ruining one of the few things in this world her siblings have to be happy about. She's a protector, but she is struggling to keep it together. The burden of being in charge of everything is weighing on her more and more, and you can see that part of why she is so accepting of a criminal hanging around and helping out is because for that very reason he's helping out. Someone is listening to her, is giving advice advice. For a brief moment, she's not doing everything alone, and that's why she lets Daryl into their lives, even though it isn't the smartest thing to do. And in the real world, if a criminal rocks up at your place, you've got a Buckley's chance of it going well. Daryl is hilarious and in a way endearing. He's actually not a bad person. He's just someone who has made a lot of dumb mistakes. His storyline has so many layers. He's the onion of this film, and as we go forward, more and more layers get peeled back. And what's even better is his story actually is tied to everyone's far more than we realized. The film very slowly fleshes it out, so there are twists and turns you don't expect, so they pull you more and more into the story and provide this fantastic development of every single character. Everyone has a journey and they all come to the same destination, but Daryl's is the focus. Just the way they flesh him and his story out is so great. The mum Fiona, for most of the film, you think, wow, this woman is so depressed. She's given up on everything, including raising her kids. And it's true, she is depressed and she has dropped the ball, but she's tougher than anyone gives her credit for and more capable too. She's just going through a lot and not focusing on the right things. But when it comes down to it, this Aussie farmer is someone you don't want to mess with. I usually don't like Australian films set in the outback because they're so stereotypical, but this had a lot of things that I'd consider inclusive that I've not seen in films with this kind of setting. We have an interracial family living in the outback, and the owner of the property wasn't the white dad. It was the Asian heritage mother. She says her family have owned the land for 80 years, and this was awesome. We tend to see Aussie films showing farmers being exclusively white. This film went, nah, 80 years ago some folks immigrated from overseas and bought land and a farm and built a life for themselves in Australia and passed the land to each generation. That's Australian right there. On top of that, we have farmers who are battling the very harsh realities of an Australian drought. Again, extremely spot on. I can't argue with any of this. There are a few nods in this film to some of my other favourite Christmas films, whether intentional or not, I don't care. But we have a scene where there are traps and fights against our bad guy Dingo, which reminds me of Kevin McAllister in Home Alone. We have a family's dysfunction being aired out and dealt with thanks to a robber in hiding, which is very much like The Ref. I really love these touches. As ridiculous as this film was at times, it's so on brand for this country. Australian humour isn't always politically correct. It can be very dark and crass, and that's just how we are. So this film takes Aussie humour and amps up the levity so that it feels oddly wholesome and appropriate for Christmas time. This is not like any Christmas film you've seen, and as ridiculous, I keep saying, as it seemed, it felt so authentic. It felt like the perfect representation of Christmas in my country, especially the final scene. The ham, the prawns, the bum-bums, the tissue paper hats, the cricket, the inflatable pool, it was all relatable. It's everything I had hoped for over the years. The character of Dingo is about the craziest thing in this film, and at times it feels like the film has really taken the piss because his characters are just nuts and insanely religious, with his religious delusions kinda in a funny way parodying the story of the birth of Christ, but its over-the-top stupidity is what made it work. It was levity. Yeah, it's a bad guy wanting to kill someone, but it's all depicted in a funny way. But that's not to say there is no heart. There is so much heart in this film, and I shed several tears to the point I was laying back having to use my bushman's handkerchief. A family gets a second chance and gets to move on and move forward and process a loss. A criminal gets to redeem himself and start a new life as the person he is but never had the chance to be before, and the bad guy meets a festive end. It has the traditional happy ending, but we do not get there by traditional means. To anyone outside Australia, you'd look at this and go, are you having a laugh? But to an Aussie like myself, I look at this and go, that's my Australia and that's my Christmas, and I freaking loved it. From the moment I heard Prisoner of Society by Australian punk rock band The Living End, a song I grew up listening to because my sister used to listen to it all the time on Triple M, I knew I was in for a good time. I was sold from that moment. The hilarious one-liners, awesome performances, and perfect backdrop, all culminating in the single greatest line ever delivered in movie history.
Somehow, Hazel, I don't think you've got the balls.
Nah, I got freaking ovaries.
Made this not just an awesome Aussie Christmas movie, but an awesome movie in general. It delivered the humour, the feels, and got right to my heart. If you have Stan or are able to get access to this film, I 100% recommend checking it out to either learn a bit more about Australia or just to have a bloody good time. And ladies and gentlemen, those are my thoughts on A Sunburnt Christmas. I can go back to never having to use ochre ever again. No more Aussie slang for me. I'm done. That was my peak. That was my limit. That was more Aussie slang than I've ever used in my life. You may not think that maybe you're probably if you're an Aussie, you might go, yeah, you barely used any. But for me, who a lot of the terms, if you heard something like, what the hell did that mean? Yeah, I don't use these in day-to-day conversation. I just don't. I'm not a fan of it. It's not for me. But I went for it because it fits the subject of this film and I felt like having a little fun. And so if you have any questions, if you are not Australian and you did not understand the context of some of the things I was saying, comment down below. Tell me what words or phrases you need clarifying on, and I will endeavour to tell you what I was saying. I will give you the translations. I will translate Australian into English. Which is such a crazy, I mean, it's like Cockney rhyming in British, you know, it's very much kind of the same thing in Australia. But then again, sometimes we say things and even I'm like, what? Like, another word for a toilet is a thunderbox. I personally have never in my life heard someone call it that, and I hope I never do, because, I mean, thinking about it, it's funny, but I don't ever want to hear someone say, gotta go visit the thunderbox. Oh my god. What is, I don't know. Anyway, if you by some chance have seen a Sunburnt Christmas, please comment below, share your thoughts on it. I'm sorry that I didn't get this out before Christmas, but oh well, now you have something to watch next Christmas. But yeah, to anyone, I cannot recommend this enough. It was a bloody good time. But that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope everybody who watched this and everybody who didn't watch this is getting ready for 2021. Hope everybody has a happy new year, and I beg, I plead, and hope that the universe will make 2021 fraction better than 2020 was, and that everybody will be okay. With that said, I am out. Thank you as always to my amazing patrons, and I will catch you all in the next one. Bye guys!